Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Robin Pod Weekly. The Robins heading to Saturday's Challenge Cup semi-final fresh from a magic victory over Salford. And after 10 rounds of Super League, Rovers sit top of the pile. Joining me to discuss all things Hull KR this week is Steve Till and Gary Lee. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How are we doing?
Good, mate. Good. How are you?
Yeah, I tell you what, mate, I'm buzzing. Do you know what? Rovers in a really good position after 10 rounds of Super League. It's that mythical figure of games, isn't it, where coaches, supporters, media pundits say this is where you can judge sides. And after 10 rounds, Steve, I think we're looking pretty good.
Yes, there's times when you're pinching yourselves, aren't there? Because I'm obviously the oldest one here and supported them the longest, and we've seen only once have I seen a Rovers team that I think they're going to win, and that was the 80s team, the 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 and the Roger Millwood coach team, and we're there now again. And there's part of me that still says, watch out, because there's a banana skin. And I can't help it. It's ingrained into me, having followed Rovers all these years. But, you know, this team is as good as any I've seen in the red and white, you know, this squad. And with the coach we've got, yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that the monkey will be off our back by the end of the season, hopefully by the end of June.
Yeah, Gary, I mean, 10 rounds into Super League. We're heading into a Challenge Cup semi-final. It's not been perfect, though, hasn't it? Because, of course, we lost to Wigan. They're our kryptonite at the moment, aren't they, in terms of the games. Hopefully, come the end of the season, it's, you know, we'll rectify that. So that's the only blot on the copybook. But I tell you what, this Robin side is looking really strong at the moment.
Yeah, I think they are. Like Steve said, I mean, I've been supporting them probably not as long as you, Steve, but I certainly remember just after Roger was coaching them, that's when I kind of started. And I said to somebody when we lost to Wigan, I said, look, if that's the only team we lose to this season and we finish top of the league, you know, get the Shield and we get the Challenge Cup, I said, we've done all right, haven't we? You know, and I'm a bit like you, Steve. I went to work today, right? And somebody who doesn't really follow rugby went, you must be really pleased your team's on top. So that's the kind of effect it's having. And he's a football supporter, you know, not even, you know, from Leeds. And I was like, yeah, it's great, mate, you know. And I'm a bit like you, Steve, but I'm a bit of a glass half full all the time. So when that banana skin comes, we'll move on from it and we'll just keep going, I think. I'm not nervous about anything at all. I think, like you said, we've got a great coach, we've got a great squad of players. And I know we'll talk about it later on, but that squad that was announced today for the semi-final, you kind of like, there's no weak spots in there, is there?
No, and I'll tell you what, we're going to speak about later the people who listen to this podcast. Rovers have just launched their podcast again. First player up to be interviewed by Rob Chadwick, who I thought did a brilliant job in terms of his interviewing and the questions and knowledge. Elliot Minchella and the desire he shows, the want to win a trophy, and the team spirit they fostered. You know, it all goes hand in hand with that. So we'll speak about that a bit later. But I'll tell you what, Steve, let's go back to Newcastle. Magic weekend. On the whole, in terms of rugby league, it's been deemed a success. I think it was the highest crowd they'd had for a long time. It was the biggest Sunday attendance that I'd had for a long time. for a lot of Rover supporters, I guess playing Salford, maybe not the biggest draw, but going up to Newcastle is a big draw. Newcastle's a great place to go. I've seen some people, Steve, say Magic Weekend, the spiritual home, is now Newcastle. Of course, for a long time it was the Etihad. I think that's where it got a good home there. Great memories, Dave Hodgson scoring that try against that lot. But Newcastle's a great place. I say what, Newcastle's a place where you can't not have a good time. If you don't have a good time, it's probably down to you. But the Robins went up there, faced Salford, and 54-0. You know, it was a pretty convincing victory. Although, I will say, there was a few errors in there as well.
Yeah. I'm going to just go on your earlier point about Newcastle. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I don't like seeing the open spaces. I don't like seeing the terracing that doesn't have people in. I'd much prefer a ground where it doesn't look half empty. You know,
well, it's not great, is it? Because if you're trying to sell the game to someone who's got no interest in rugby league and they turn on Magic Weekend and they see half the ground empty, they'll go, well, if they're not bothered, it can't be that good.
That's right. I mean, it's a fantastic city. It's vibrant, and there's a lot going off for it. And the product's good in terms of rugby league. It's just those empty spaces. It just gets to me a little bit, you know. Well,
I tell you what, Steve, just on that point, and I know we're going to talk about it later on in terms of the Challenge Cup semi-final. I think the RFL, they get a lot of criticism, you know, and I think a lot of it's warranted. But playing our semi-final at York against Catalan, bear in mind, I know it's going to be, 90% Rovers, but in terms of a spectacle as a TV viewer, a full stadium, you know.
That's the point I'm making.
And I think this is where we need to get away. Oh God, we're on another point here about rugby league, and actually, it's not about the punter who goes to the stadium who makes the money. It's the guy who's sat on the set. That's where the real money is.
Yeah, and you're on national television. You're on BBC One on a Saturday afternoon. Anybody watching sport, unless they're following horse racing, will naturally deviate to press the button for BBC One on a Saturday afternoon. The figures will be there.
Yeah, and the old grandstand.
Absolutely, yeah. With Eddie. It's an up and under. But but it's the grandstand times, and many people of my generation will still sit and watch BBC One or the sporting events on BBC One on a Saturday afternoon. So yeah, there is that. As I say, I was playing devil's advocate, but York will look full and it'll be a good atmosphere. You know, a couple of years ago we went to Headingley, didn't we? We played Wigan, and half the ground was empty again and again. That, you know, there was a lot of Rovers fans. There was lots of, you know, we outnumbered the Wigan fans, but it was a semi-final and it didn't attract a full house.
Even last year, Steve, at Doncaster, you know, you know, and Doncaster holds what? Doncaster's not the biggest ground. I think it holds about 12,000, and
there were empty spaces. Yeah.
Empty spaces. So yeah, I think. Do you know what? I think actually the worst thing it could have been was Rovers Catalan at Headingley.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. And let's not imagine this is going to happen. But could you think what it'd be like if they did beat us on Saturday? The rugby league will be frightened to death of Catalans beating us on Saturday, because Wembley would be pretty awful.
What Lee Catalan versus Lee?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Anyway,
right,
we digress. I tell you what, Gary, let's go back to the game.
I'm just happy here listening to you two. It's fine. Go on.
Gary, 54-0. I'll tell you what, I said to Steve, I said a lot to Steve, and no wonder he picked out at a certain point. 54-0.
Yeah.
The most important part of that game for me was the scoreline in terms of the nil, because ultimately Wigan were chasing us down. They had a better points difference than us, points scored, and we've done something to just put us that little bit in front in case of, you know, Wigan getting level with us. What did you make of the game, Gary?
Yeah, I was the same as you, actually. I was thinking about this coming home today, thinking, you know, we won. That's the main thing, isn't it? If you go down the priorities, we won. We got the 2 points. Our points difference is now just a bit better, or around about where Wigan is. So that's great. So if we do lose one and they win, we're still in there. You know, we've got that little bit of a buffer, which I think was probably the second aim. Third aim was really the performance, which we're on a hide into nothing, aren't we? As a Rovers supporter, you know you're going to win that game. So there'll be half the Rovers supporters want to say we should have won that 80-0, you know. And then the sensible Rovers supporters are like, well, we got 2 points and it was 54-0 and we've got the points different, etc., etc., etc. I'm not saying the ones who said 80-0 are not sensible. I'm just kind of paraphrasing a little bit. I don't want to get loads of comments coming in. But yes, for me, the performance was it's a results business. So we got the 2 points and we won. The performance, I think it's natural, isn't it? I just think it's natural to take your foot off the gas a little bit and make those errors. And I think they said, didn't they, second half, they were trying different things and, you know, the game was sewn up. So the coach asked them to try some different things and they didn't quite turn off. They didn't quite stake, or there was a knock on here and a drop ball there and stuff like that. But I think it's to be expected a little bit, you know. And if we take a step back as a supporter, 2 points and the 0 and the points difference is what mattered, I think.
Yeah, and Steve, I mean, it was a bit of a different lineup, wasn't it, that we've become accustomed to. We saw Brown, Eric Dorrow, Bill Leyland on the bench, and of course Noah Booth, who came into the side. He's obviously signed from Wakefield. He's been on loan at Hounslow. He went to Featherstone. He's not played for Featherstone. Then he got pulled into the first team. Interestingly, he made the most carries out of any player on that pitch against Salford. He came up with a try. He recovered from a knock-on, which many players don't recover from, but you want to know. He had a great link-up with Hiku for that 1-2 where Morg went in for the try. Great play from them. Booth was on the end of a Hiku offload. Let's throw him on no Booth still, Steve, because he signed a free contract and there's big things expected of him. And the fact that Willie Peters has fast-tracked him into that first team so soon says, you know, he's one who could be a first teamer in a couple of years' time.
I've known Noah Booth since he was 11. I've watched him. Back, I think it was in 2016. He played at Wembley. He played for Castle.
Yeah, for the Skulls. Yeah.
He's cool. He won man of the player of the match at that match. He's the grandson of Mick Morgan, who I was involved in writing Mick's book, and so I met Noah several times. Him and his cousin, and his cousin played hooker that day, and he scored a try at Wembley. And what I saw of Noah, you'll try and get the video of that try, because Noah's backing up. And when his cousin went over to score the try, Noah didn't celebrate immediately. Noah looked back behind him to see the referee, whether he was going to award the try. The referee awarded the try and Noah celebrated. That's a maturity at the age of 11 that not many kids have. And I've watched him grow since then. And what an athlete. He's 20. Wait while he's had a pre-season with Rovers. You know, Peters is obviously mad keen on him. And it was great to see him celebrating with Mick and Brenda Morgan and his mum Sharon and his dad. And it was it was Salford, but you still have to perform. And like you say, recovered well from that high drop ball. And there wouldn't have been many could have taken that drop, that high ball, because it was spinning and it was windy. And he recovered well from it. And he's a good, mature kid who's got a good family, and he will come on leaps and bounds at Rovers, I'm certain.
So he's got that support network around him then, hasn't he, as a family, which is what I think you need now, don't you? As a modern young player, I think you need that kind of support around you, don't you? You know, you don't. Yeah. you know, you don't get players traveling halfway around the world now, do you, with nobody watching them, you know, or just across the Pennines, you've got to have that support. Yeah.
And Noah sees himself as a centre, by the way. That was his position, was centre. So, yeah, he's got a lot going for him. Let's hope he comes through. I'm sure he will after a full pre-season at Craven Park.
Yeah, and of course, another player that people have been crying out to see, Gary, was 𝗷𝗏𝗏. The fact he was named on the exchange bench, and he's so athletic, isn't he? He's so powerful. You know, he doesn't. You know, he's not fearful of anything because you can see how he runs, and it was good for us as supporters, wasn't it, to see these players, because we sat. You know, another one we'll talk about, 𝗂𝗂𝗽𝗓𝗏 Sambo, who signed from Oldham. Of course, St Helens youngster gone to Oldham. You know, these players come in ultimately as supporters. Yes, for the majority of people, couldn't care who Lesser plays as long as you win a game, you win a trophy, whatever it is. But when you reflect, yeah, we want to see a pathway, we want to see progression, we want to see these players being able to give the opportunity. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, of course, had a great season with Bradford. Player of the year, he swept the board with the awards, and we saw a glimpse of him in the Oldham Challenge Cup game, and then we got to see him in the Super League game. I think what was smart from Willie Peters is these kids, Booth, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, Leyland, were told a couple of weeks ago that they would be playing. So part of their prep was then going out on loan and potentially playing that other side, and I think that it just took the pressure off them a little bit as well, because they could plan for it rather than the week before.
Just saying you're in. Just saying you're in.
You're in. And I think that's the smartness of Willie Peters of being able to pinpoint a game to bring these players in. But 𝗏𝗏𝗏, another one who came in and looked the part.
Yeah, it's like any job, innit, Johno and Steve. If you're told you're going to go and do a job no matter what it is, and in this case it's professional rugby league, right, in 3 weeks' time you're going to be centre stage. You've got 3 weeks to prepare no matter what your job is, you know. And I think like you just said there, the coaching staff have done really well, haven't they? So when they do appear at Magic Weekend, it's not daunting for them. And they do. You look at 𝗏𝗏𝗏. We'll go back to 𝗏𝗏𝗏 there. You look at him run, and I think there was a great shot of him when he would face on when he was running at some Salford players, and he was kind of like just aggression personified, really. You know, we all think JWH and that can run in, and this guy 𝗏𝗏𝗏, he was just all over it, wasn't he? It was. I thought it was really good watching him on the telly. Yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah,
and I say what, see, the dominance at times of the game. We made more than double their meters. We made 1,567 meters. They made 788. We made 39 tackle busts. They made 20. What was interesting, though, is to play the ball in the opposition 20. We played at 18. They played at 20 in ours. And the errors, 15 errors from the Robins. And I think when you look at it, it's crazy, really, isn't it? When you look at a 54-0 scoreline to go, I watched it and went, yeah, that was good, but the one great. But the fact they racked up 54 points and kept them to 0 is the crazy thing. And I think it is the expectation, Steve, now we've got on this side is that we have to be a bit realistic as well. We're not going to beat teams 100-0 every week. You know, there's a you know, and I think a lot of credit, Steve, as well, and I think Willie Peters did it after the Newcastle game, is he gave credit to Salford about how they fronted up. Their line defence wasn't great because you could see some of the tries from like Hadley, Hiku, Luckley. You know, I was able to just barge over, but they did make a competitive game.
Yeah, they had a go. I mean, you go back to the Salford that played St Helens, and it was a team of kids, and St Helens put 80 past them. You know, we were never going to put 80 past this team. And I wouldn't have expected us to. So it was a good, hard performance, a good workout for what's to come. And, Salford, they stuck to the task. They stuck to the task later on as well, you know. And then they almost crossed the Rovers' line a couple of times. You know, the ankle tap from Mikey Lewis to stop, was it 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏?
𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏, yeah.
Yeah, and also the young kid dropped the ball as he was going over the line for Salford. That'd have been a disaster for the team because I'm certain had he scored that try, Peters would have put him through it in training this week to stop that kind of thing. But yeah, Salford had a go, and we did what we had to do. And you know, we'd look back at other teams and they'd be the same. You know, we could criticise. You know, I've seen matches where Wigan have been expected to put one on a team and haven't done so. And whether you're trying too hard to score or whether you're trying to look flash or whatever it is, whatever reason, but you have got an opposition, all right, not the best opposition, but you have got an opposition and they're determined to do their best as well. So I was satisfied with that.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, when you look at when the tries were scored, and this is... maybe it's Rovers going for the jugular here because in the first half, luckily scores on the 22nd minute. They go in on the 30th minute with Hiku, and then Lewis breaks, and then Litton goes over. That's the 33rd. So that's 3 tries in, 11, 12 minutes. The second half, Litton goes over after a Leyland offload. Moore goes over on the 73rd minute. And then Moore goes over again on the 78th minute. So that's 3 tries again in a 12-minute spell. So what they've done is, they've really gone in spells. You know, maybe that's by accident. I don't know. But that feels like the players getting a sniff of. I think these Rovers players go, they know when they're in front, and then they know when to then sit back and not sit back. They know when it's time to defend. And they're really clever at going, go, 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 go. Like, you know, and it's really intelligent play because then 2 spells of try scoring has basically won the game. And Rovers won it at Canter. And I think that's not, I don't think, Gary, that's an accident. I do think that's.
No, I think it's, I think when you watch Rovers and you look back, even last season, the amount of times we score a try and then within another couple of sets we score another try, and that kind of, and I think it is deliberate. I mean, I'm not there, I'm not on the training ground, but I think it is deliberate because it kind of knocks the wind out of the opposition, doesn't it? You know, and vice versa. Teams have done it to us in the past, haven't they? And look how, you know, and it's quite difficult to come back from. Once you get a third try and the kicks and then you're 18 points difference, it's really tough, isn't it? So I think it is, isn't it? You know, I think it probably is trained into them a little bit. Right, let's go for it now. Let's step it up another, and we're going to talk about him later on, aren't we? And that's probably led from number 13, isn't it? You know,
well, I tell you what, Steve. One of the things that I enjoyed the most, and it's a bit of a funny one, is when Bachelor scored. Michael Lewis makes a break, and then Munichella. I mean, every day of the week, Lewis should offload it to Munichella, and Munichella's giving him absolute pelters for not passing it. It did work out, but it was more of a contrived try than it should have been. And Munichella's spoke so fondly of Lewis and how he's got a friendship with him and he knows what to say to him. And I think he's probably justified at that point of saying, pass me the fucking ball. Just give me, like, he should have, every day of the week, he should have passed that ball.
That was his body language, wasn't it? When you had the wide shot.
Well, what his body language, you could see him giving him it as well. Couldn't you, Steve?
Yeah, it was. And luckily it worked out, as we say, but it might not work out against other teams, you know. But, you know, that's the game, isn't it? If every game was played perfectly, really, if you're an Australian coach, every game had finished 0-0, wouldn't it? You know, because they just want defences on top. But, yeah, that aside, it's still a learning curve. Every game's a learning curve. And next time Mikey Lewis does that, and he's got Munichella on that side, he's going to go that way, isn't he, in future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or gain the wrath of Munichella again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, as well, what was impressive, I mean, don't get me wrong, the way Rovers scored tries was quite favourable, but Morg, 9 kicks from 9 tries, you know, it's important, and that was ultimately the points difference, what helped us. I think the players helped him out a lot, Gary, by putting the tries where they did. but Morg still slotted him over. We'll talk about the Challenge Cup semi-final, obviously, very shortly, but he has brought a good level of kicking, a consistency to the kicking.
I think it's better than good, isn't it? I think it's he just slots him over from anywhere, doesn't he? And it's kind of like he's not even struggling. It doesn't look like he's struggling from the stands, you know, and that's his job. But yeah, I think when Rhys Martin comes back, I think we're going to have he's going to have a difficult choice, isn't he? You know, I think Morg has brought that. You've just said it, Johno, the consistency in the kicking. Knowing, I think we know now, don't we? No matter where the tries are scored, there's a good chance the kick's going to follow it.
Yeah, I say, the other thing I was going to say, Steve, as well, in terms of the signings, when people got sniffed that Niall Evalds might be leaving, obviously there's a bit of an uproar. They're not getting them wrong, are they? Who goes and who comes in.
No, they're not. One thing that worries me about, and we're going to go on to Saturday, Morg's going to be missing. So the kicking could be vital on Saturday. And yeah, but the people saying Niall, he's unlucky as Niall Evalds. He broke his ankle, hasn't he, in his first game for Huddersfield. And Morg is a very, very, very good player who will thrive now. Will thrive at Rovers. And again, it's another one that came out the blue, really, wasn't it? You know.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Steve, I think what's really good about sometimes like you look at a fullback in terms of defence and what he can offer in defence. Ultimately, if you've got a broken line and your fullback is the last line of defence, it's not necessarily the fullback's fault he can't make the tackle because the defence have already let you down. But our defence is so good that Morg's is raw at the moment. He's taking the high kick, returning it, which he does. I tell you what, his meters made is absolutely fantastic because he's not the biggest bloke either.
No.
But I tell you what, he's one of the bravest. But also, he slots into the line like another halfback. You know, he's got the ability to run the ball and he's got the ability to pass it. He's played for Catalan at halfback, and he's another pivot for that side. So when we go into that line, you've got Lewis, May, Litton, Morg, great players. The ball's so soft in their hands. It's great for us in terms of attacking options.
Yeah, he's a great. We've got so many utility players now, haven't we? So many players that can play all these different positions, and that's going to benefit us as we go through the season.
Yeah, excellent. I tell you what, Steve, are you ready for Robins Revisited?
Yeah, we'll revisit. We're only going to go back a few years.
Go on then, Steve. Take us back to wherever.
10 years, in fact, when we played Catalans in the Cup, quarter-final, Craven Park. We'd just beaten Wigan at Lee, and we were yet to face Warrington in the semi-final. I don't want to talk about the final, but anyway, this was a hell of a match, the quarter-final. Rovers raced into a massive lead, 26-6 at half-time. And yet, being Rovers, it ended up 32-26. So we had a few scratchy moments towards the end. Catalans came to Craven Park with a pretty poor away record that year, and it showed in the 8th minute. Kensio took a Kieran Dixon pass, crashed over, out-sprinted Yaha, who's worn the red and white in the past. And then the two Rovers props, Adam Walker and Tony Pullatua, they dominated all the early exchanges against the tough, what looked on paper a tough Catalan pack. But they combined to put Dixon over, and 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏 again converted. And then it was 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏 who made the next try. He outjumped Morgan Escaré. Maurice Blair had put a high kick in, and 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏 outjumped Escaré and put none other than Albert Kelly over for a try. The fourth try came from a Sean Lunn cutout pass. 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏 again was there to take that pass, and and Graham On was on his inside to finish the move. So that was Rovers with a 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏 penalty as well, 26 points. And just before the break, Catalan scored a try to make it 26-6 at half time, and all the Rovers fans were happy and thinking this could be 50. But little did we know, because a run of penalties against Rovers gave Catalans the chance to get back into the game, and they scored a couple of tries. Zabtaya and the second for Inu cut it to 26-14, and then they looked dangerous, but in the 63rd minute, Liam Salter put CO over for his second try, and the danger looked over for Rovers. But in those last 17 minutes, Catalan scored two more tries. Ian Henderson and Elliot Whitehead touchdown, and it was really squeaky bum time. But going back to the match, Chris Chester obviously was Rovers' coach, and Chris has said in the past that 40 minutes, that first 40 minutes, is probably the best 40 minutes he's ever seen from a Rovers side that he has coached. And that's how good it was. And like I say, history shows that we went on to the semi-final, we went on to the final. We didn't come back with silverware, but I'd go for a match like this on Saturday, as long as we come out on top again.
I'll tell you what, Gary, the build up to this semi-final on Saturday, it's a bit different, isn't it? Because there's which is unique to Rovers supporters for a while at least. There's a bit of expectation. It's not. So Steve talks about the Catalan quarter-final, and we went to Headingley in that game, and we went in hope more than expectation. It was a dream, not an expectation of where we should be. I think this semi-final, Rovers fans are expecting us to beat Catalan. Don't get me wrong. There'll be a large group of people amongst the fan base who are still biting the fingernails, going, I hope. But I'm confident. I think, based on what Catalan have done this season, based on what Rovers have done, based on the fact that Burgess, Tanganoa, Davis are back, based on, there's home support, the fact that the crowd is going to be 90% red and white. The fact that the build-up is Rovers basically have to make a 50-minute bus journey to the ground. They don't really change their pre-match routine. Am I getting so confident, Gary?
No, I don't think you are. I think all those points are really valid points, aren't they? I think Garcia's missing, isn't he? Their captain's missing, isn't he?
Sam Tompkins either. They've announced a squad. Sam Tompkins for them. Although I wish he probably would have played, because I don't think he's actually added much to them since he's unretired himself.
It's one season too far for him, isn't it? I think we won't talk about him too much, but it's one season too far, and he's too fond of the microphone now, I think. Although their captain has been named in the squad, all those points you just mentioned, the proximity of the ground, 95% Rovers. I've got tickets. I bought a ticket in the North Stand behind the sticks, and I've actually given that away in a competition because I purchased two other tickets just where the tunnel is in the Catalan. I got them. They were advertised as Catalan tickets, but I'm taking somebody else as well. So I thought I'd get some decent seats. and I've got two Catalans tickets, so they were on sale until about 2 weeks ago and not been sold. So I think it's going to be. I think we'll be surprised that it'll be 95% Rovers. I know Catalans have stayed here, haven't they? They've not gone home. They've stayed here for the week after Magic weekend. I'm confident, like I said earlier on, I'm glass half full all the time. I think we'll win. I think it'll be closer than a lot of people think it will potentially. But I think we'll come out on top. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Steve, the fact that after Magic, Catalan have, stayed over here to I mean, don't get me wrong as well, Steve, it would be a short turnaround for them, wouldn't it? To play Magic, fly back, fly over, then fly back again for a Challenge Cup semi-final. I think Steve McNamara, it feels like for Catalan, they're putting all their eggs in this basket to go, this is our chance of getting to a final, which would be a punch to the nose to the RFL, wouldn't it, really, in terms of what's happening with the clubs and in terms of the appointment of Nigel Wood to lead a review of top-level elite rugby league and say that Catalan might be kicked out and all blah, 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 all that. If Catalan got to a Challenge Cup final, that is a big punch to the nose. So I can understand why the club are probably doing what they're doing. Obviously, that might disrupt them as well because they're going away from what they normally do. Whereas I think I listened to 𝗀𝗂𝗋𝗄𝗧 today on the Radio Homicide interview that I did, and he was saying they're pretty much keeping it as normal. They've had the benefit of training at York yesterday just to get them used to it. They've already played the Challenge Cup first round game at York. Like I said, it's not that short of a journey as long as they don't get stuck on traffic on the A1079. But it's home from them, and Catalan are doing something a bit different. But when you look at Catalan this season, they've not been great. They have picked up some results. It's always that thing, though, cup game. Who knows what might happen?
What they did to St Helens a couple of years ago, was it in the playoffs? Or?
No, well, yeah. One of the craziest results you'll ever see, wasn't it? Didn't they score three tries in about 5 minutes? Or
yeah, that was at Magic weekend. I'm talking about when they put Saints out the.
No, yeah, yeah, right at the end.
Yeah, where I think Tompkins scored, didn't he? And he put Saints out the grand final. It was going to be Roby's grand final or Tompkins' grand final, and it became Tompkins' grand final. Talking of Tompkins, by the way, he's got a record against Rovers of about 92% victories. So I'm glad he's out. Yeah, you look at his record against Rovers. It's fantastic. At one point, it was about 97%. I think he'd played 19 times against Rovers and won 18 times. So I'm glad that Tompkins out. But when you look at the Catalan team, they've still got. I mean, look at this young fullback, 𝗂𝗂𝗡𝗴𝗏. I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, this kid's good. He can kick goals as well. He's going to have to be watched. And people like Elliot Whitehead, Tariq Sims, 𝗀𝗂𝗡𝗏, they're all going to be looking at what you say. They're all going to want to give the rugby league a bloody nose. So as Gary said, it won't be that easy. But I've kind of tried to look at it dead straight, and I looked at Catalan's performance against Lee at Magic, and Lee managed to beat them. And I think we're still a little bit better than Lee.
Yeah, I tell you what, they've got good names, but I think they look leggy. They don't seem to have that athleticism.
They've got the buzzword, isn't it? The word everybody's using this year. Last year, I'm digressing a bit. Last year's word in rugby league was edge, wasn't it? Get it to the edge. Everybody was talking about the edge. This year, the in word seems to be spine, doesn't it? And they've got a really good spine, haven't they? And they've got some big units up front, However, our forwards and our spine are really mobile. They're really mobile, we always say this, don't we, about a Catalans team? It depends who turns up on the day. You know, it could be a really good game, couldn't it? You know, Rovers win by 12 or 10, or it could be Rovers win by 30, depending on what team Catalans turn up. Well, we know Rovers are going to turn up this season, don't we? Because we've had 3 good seasons, and we know and we expect. We basically know what Rovers team is, what they're like when they play. Catalans are still that kind of, we don't really know, do we? Who's going to turn up on the day?
We've got to run their forwards about. We've got to run these big, you know, the Saturdays. Got to Whitehead. I've just mentioned Whitehead. He played in that game 10 years ago, so he's no spring chicken anymore. Run him around. You know, Saturday, run him around. Tariq Sims, he's been in the game since God was a lad. You know, make sure that he's knackered. Get the ball wide as much as possible, and win the middle, and then spread the ball wide. And if we do win the middle early on, I think they'll collapse. But it's a semi-final, and semi-finals have a habit of proving you wrong.
But Steve, I tell you what, a big boost will be Joe Burgess, Tom Davies, and 𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏 coming back into that first team. I mean, don't get me wrong, no, Booth did a great job. You know, he's not playing in this game, and I think the Willie Peters was sensible in terms of how he could have brought Davis back, but do you know what? He erred on the side of caution, going, no, I want him for that semi-final. Davis is so important in terms of them kick return meters. He's one of our top meter makers so far this season. Interestingly, 𝗂𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏 is our top meter maker at the moment, which many people didn't expect. I think 𝗂𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏, I tell you what, Steve, on a side note, 𝗂𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏, one of the standout centres in Super League for me. And that's my Rovers tinted spectacles. But I can't understand how most people won't see what he brings. That offload to Noah Booth, it's effortless.
Just one-handed.
But then the try he scored, Steve, barges over from hooker, runs, makes 10 metres, boom, straight over the line. And you know, 𝗂𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏 for me, he's got the lot.
Do you know, go back to the beginning of last season, that game, first game of the season when he played fullback and they were having the piss taken out of him by that lot over there. Do you know 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏's played 45 games for Rovers? He hasn't missed a game since that game.
Yeah.
He has not missed one game. You know, that's 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏.
And also, look how happy he looks. How he's enjoying his rugby league.
Isn't he? Yeah, joyous. You know, that's the other thing about Rovers. The team spirit at Rovers is fantastic. You know, you look how they reacted when Sam Luckley scored his try last week. You know, they were so happy for Sam Luckley. Look how they reacted when Noah Bull did score his try. They were so happy for Noah. You know, and everybody runs in and everybody congratulates each other, and it's genuine. It's genuine.
That's it. It's not fake, is it? They're not playing at it. They genuinely mean it.
Yeah.
Even in the when you watch the little videos, you know, the Rovers inside videos, when they win and they sing their Red Red Robin in the changing rooms. Week before last, it was Leyland was leading it. Noah Booth was doing it this weekend. Yeah. Just bringing it. It's just bringing them on in it and getting them into that team. It's great.
Tell you what, then that Rovers on the inside. If you watch them, and I'd urge anyone who's watching and listening to this, you just get little nuggets, little snippets of things that you wouldn't normally pick up on, but if you watch it, like the team spirit, you know, the players who are pivotal in the change, the ones who are, you know, you just get little nuggets of information, and you see a different side of Robins, and I'd urge you to watch them because they are interesting. You get, like I said, you just get that little bit. But going back to the Challenge Cup semi-final and who's lining up, there's no doubt, Steve, is that Burgess, Davis are going to be massive coming into that game.
And I wonder if 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 will play.
Well, that's a big question mark at the moment, isn't it? And that's we saw him come off after 5 minutes at Magic Weekend. He didn't look the best, did he? When he was coming off the pitch, he was being carried off almost by the physio. But what I would say is, if he doesn't play, I don't think it disrupts it too much.
No.
And I don't mean that as a disrespect to 𝗲𝗂𝗏 in terms of, because I think he's been fantastic this season. And I really do. But who do you think would replace 𝗲𝗂𝗏, Steve?
I think you've got to put Batchelor there. Batchelor, it's just one step over, isn't it? And he's scored tries every time he's played centre.
Yeah.
So I think I think Batchelor's got to go there. And
he's the most successful back row centre in the league.
Yeah. Not lost as well, have we? 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏 we haven't lost one of him playing at centre.
No, I think it's a natural thing to do. Let's not put square pegs in round holes. I think it's the most natural thing to do.
So in that scenario, then, Gary. So imagine 𝗲𝗏𝗏 doesn't play. Batchelor goes into centre. Obviously, then that frees up a second row spot.
Yeah.
Because you'd expect Batchelor to play there. You'd assume Hadley's now slotting into the second row. So then at second row, you've got potentially Ṱanganoa. Don't forget, Whitbread did a great job at Magic, so he could possibly slot in there. And then it frees up a space on the bench, doesn't it? Because then you go, well, do you go Brown, Doro? Because at the moment, you're assuming Leyland's going to be on the bench in terms of that replacement hooker. I think that's... So it frees up a spot there, which leaves then Richardson or Kershaw out of the 21-man squad who are not playing. That's what intrigues me about if 𝗲𝗏𝗏 doesn't play, who then slots in them back positions, because
I think everything you just said there is a natural progression, isn't it? I think personally, for me, I don't think we played Ṱanganoa enough.
Has he got the engine? Has he got the engine?
Oh, he's got
big minutes.
He's great off the bench, isn't he? And he's so devastating. He's an absolute, for me. Maybe he has, and maybe listen. Willie knows best, doesn't he? He's, in Willie we trust, and he's done really well. However, I think everything you've said there is what will happen if 𝗲𝗏𝗏 doesn't play, and I think you end up with Kershaw as the squad member that's not going to get picked, because Richardson can kind of slot in the middle anywhere, really, can't he? A little bit, whereas Kershaw's an out and out winger, isn't he?
Yeah, it's surprising, Steve, isn't it? Because we saw the call for Kershaw to play, not just at Salford, but previously as well, because, of course, he's a winger. What surprised me, Steve, is that I think Gary said he's an out-and-out winger, so that alludes to the fact he's probably a finisher of score, and he don't run that meters out of back play. But that shouldn't have been a surprise to Willie Peters, because that's what he's played all his career. So the fact that I'd be interested to know what Kershaw's thoughts are, because Noah Booth's now potentially ahead of him.
Yeah, well, that's the way of the world, isn't it? And Kershaw knows that, because if any winger knows it, it's him. He practically begged Leeds to let him train with them last year. I think it was the year before last.
The year before then, yeah.
And then signed for London, didn't he? He's a grafter, but I think his days at Rovers might be numbered.
Dogging it at Rovers.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps been... We've never had this depth. You look at Leyland. Can I just mention Leyland's performances over the last couple of matches? I've got one big fear on Saturday. Not to do with Rovers or Catalans. It's the referee and video team.
Kendall and Fowler have been announced, Steve.
Sorry?
Kendall and Ben Fowler.
We might want to take our sleeping bags, because the game might take 3 hours. We might be going into the news at 6. Because
I think they... Go on, sorry, Steve. Go on, sorry.
No, you're right. But it's just a point I want to make. Those two together. And by the way, we have won games when those two have been paired together. We've beaten some good teams. We beat St Helens a couple of years ago with them two paired together, and I think last year. But Kendall can't make his mind up. Well, be 3 yards in front of a player dropping on the ball, touching down, and he'll go to Taylor. Ben, can you let me know that that's right? So, and that could spoil it for Rovers a bit, because it gives Catalans the time to take a breath, and we're a team that we've got cohesion. We want to keep the game going and flowing.
Was it? I'm sure it was. Was it Kendall? He did the Challenge Cup game
Final.
that lot, didn't he?
Sorry, Challenge Cup.
The quarter final.
Yeah.
And I think there was who scored it? It was towards the end of the game, and I think it was a Rovers try, and I think one of the old players said to him, "Why are you going to screen?" And he just said, "Well, we've got the technology, we might as well make use of it." So that alludes to the fact that, for me, he don't. Which I get, because if you've got that option, why would you not? But
just to make doubly sure.
It's not necessarily sometimes for me, Gary, the referee going to the video ref. It's then the video refs looking at it for so long and feel like he's like buddy. He's like a crime scene
scientist.
He wants to see every camera angle available to him, doesn't he? And then slow it down. I think he enjoys his own commentary.
I think one of the things that I think they learned in Magic Weekend. I think the video refs shortened their forensic investigations during Magic Weekend compared to the weekend before, which seemed to go on forever and ever. Some of the games, didn't they? That one of the Wigan tries, I think they must have looked at it about 25, 30 times, and one Mise scored in the corner on the telly. One of the things that bugs me about the video ref is that we haven't got the technology to slow down enough to see a clear image. And anybody that wants to listen to me, I'll talk to them about this, because we haven't got and just get some better cameras.
Well, I tell you what, Gary,
the slow motion does nothing.
4K like TV screens, when they slow down a replay, it's like something from the 70s. Like the quality of the replay is unbelievable.
Can I just make a point also? This first, when we played York in the Cup, that round of the Cup, they didn't use video referees in that whole round. There was no video checks. Did anybody complain about anything? No. They just got on with the game. And the games ended after 80 minutes, apart from the odd bit of injury time. And there was no reaction from the public saying this referee made this mistake and that referee made that mistake. So, to be honest, I'd drop them. Well, I'd go the Australian way, where you'll see on screen "try confirmed." The words "try confirmed." They only go to the video referee if it's a dead set controversial decision. Yeah.
I agree. So, I think we'll see on Saturday. We'll see, and I think the referees have got to have a bit more confidence in themselves, haven't they? That's what they're there for. If it's a try and you think it's a try, give a try.
But let's not get to the point where we're going to check every tackle as well.
No,
that's that bit where the referee suddenly separates the players and stands, and he's going, yeah. We're not seeing anything. And then he'll call them over, and somebody's going to get 10 minutes.
I'll say what we digress as well. Yeah. What I don't enjoy is when the referee says to the players, and I think Kendall did this, if you don't like my decision, captain challenge it. So he's promoting a challenge. And I think sometimes with the referees, they're guilty of coaching the players too much.
Absolutely.
The referee's on the pitch to give what he sees. He shouldn't be telling players if they're offside. He shouldn't be telling them if they're not square at the marker.
Well,
he shouldn't be telling them if they've kicked the ball, hold back. He shouldn't be telling them, well, if you don't like it, captain challenge it. The referee should be mute. He should just be giving what he sees. And if the players want to challenge it, and then he penalises them, he challenges it. But
I think it works. I think sometimes it works both ways, doesn't it? Sometimes you hear the referee say, Smith, you're off. I'm just using a generic. Smith, you're off. And then what that can do is the opposition can then run to Smith and kind of
Exactly.
get an extra 10,
And this is what I'm
15
saying.
meters. Yeah.
But if the referee haven't made that call, they won't run at Smith. But if Smith's offside, then it's your
Just get him offside.
Yeah,
you don't see rugby union referees telling players. The rugby union referees blow them up. You know, they don't say, Johnny Wilkinson, you're 5 yards offside and move back. You know, they blow them up. You're offside. That's the end of it. And it stops it. It stops them being offside without them being coached. And that's been a real bugbear of mine for years.
Yeah, and I tell you what, right? I coach a junior rugby team, and I have to work my players to get them back. But they're 9 years old. Yeah. These are adults who have trained professionals. The referee doesn't need to be coaching them to say, get back, don't make the tackle, you cross it. You know, the one that frustrates me, Steve, is the one when they tell them to surrender.
Yeah.
And you're like, why are you telling them to surrender? If they want to go if they want to do that, let them do it and penalise them.
Absolutely.
I think they
immediately.
I think that you hear the referee shout dominant and surrender, don't you? Just because what that signifies is what that lets the players that have done the tackling know they've got an extra couple of seconds because the players surrendered. They don't have to move off as quickly. I think that's why they shout it. Yeah, I've got a little theory. I've got a little theory here that I've wrote down on my notes here. I think, and maybe this is for a discussion for a bit later on, Johno, maybe on another podcast. I think as a group of players, I think Rovers are too nice and too professional.
I see where you're coming from, Gary, but you know what? This is one thing I've noticed about Rovers this year. I don't know what you're one for the stats, Johno, but the number of penalties we've given away this season, we are so professional. We're quick off the mark, and you've got a lot of fans of other teams saying, "Oh, Rovers do this and Rovers do that." They do it because they're professional and they know the rules and they play to the rules and know just how close they can get, like the Wigans and the St. Helens of the past. You know, Rovers are this is the most professional Rovers team I have ever seen. You know.
Yeah, I think there's no going for me. I'm a bit like you, John, with my red and white tinted glasses. You watch the Rovers players, and there's very little back chat. You know, I think in rugby league, only the captain is supposed to be allowed to speak to the referee, and I think that happens at Rovers. Elliott's always talking to the referee, whereas you watch other teams and there's players all over them sometimes, talking to them, having a little word behind the sticks and stuff. I think we're really good at it. And I think that's, for me, I've really noticed it this season and the end of last season. I think we've got really better at just playing the game and not getting involved in all of that little peripheral stuff that's going on and getting caught up in it.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's you know you're doing something right when opposition supporters keep moaning about it. And I remember there was a time when Leeds Rhinos were, so successful. They mastered the flat pass. The amount of times you'd call it as a forward pass. The other one was Sam Tompkins, his ability to referee a game and influence it. But you know what? That was a difference between winning a title, winning a cup, and not. So if we're being pulled up on that, do you know what? That is the difference. And I think Rovers have been, Steve, you'll see. I mean, in recent past, we're so naive. We've been so naive to the game. And do you know what? Balls to it. If that's what we need to do to win something in recent history, bear in mind, if we're allowed to do it, because the match officials aren't pulling us up on it, and we're not, then that's the game. Absolutely. That is what we've got to do.
I think we've got to. I know people slag referees off. We've all done it. I don't anymore. I don't slag them off that much anymore. But I think Rovers have got the respect of the officials.
Yeah, and I think Elliot Minchella leads that because when he speaks to the match officials, he's allowed a certain voice because of the way he conducts himself.
That's right. Yeah. Just going on about players getting away with murder. I'm going to go back to when Leeds had Keith Senior. He'd have made a great AFL player because, the American footballer, because he used to shepherd players left, right, and centre. If anyone, nowadays he'd never get away with it, but by God, he could do it well when he was a player. And so what you've got to do, and what Rovers do, is work out what they can get away with, and try and get away with it. And if they can't get away with it on one occasion, then they don't do it again. But I think we have got. I genuinely do believe that a lot of the officials respect Rovers now.
Mm.
Yeah, and I tell you what, go back to that errors. Rovers have give the third least amount of penalties away.
Yeah.
Warrington and Huddersfield have give the least amount. Rovers are third in the table for penalties.
Yeah.
Who's top, Johno?
A great question. Salford, which is no surprise, is it?
No.
Yeah.
I think they're running on gas. Interestingly, there's another side who were second. Who were the other side of the river. So we'll leave it at that. But I tell you what, I think that there's a style. The referees have changed their style. So if you go back to like Robin Whitfield, who was quite authoritarian,
He used to get in the fight.
Whereas now referees are trying to manage the game. They want to be friends with the players. They want to try and coach them around. And I think there's a different. This is like you said earlier, Gary. That could be a whole nother podcast. This could be a whole nother podcast about how referees are now more trying to be mates with the players and coach them and be friends. Whereas the 80s referees were probably more, no, don't talk to me. Boom, there's your card. Boom, there you go.
Card.
There's
you're talking to me. You're talking to me. Another 10 yards. Didn't Lindop take somebody 40 yards once, Steve, in a game? I think I remember seeing.
What fascinates me, going back to Mick Morgan, when I did the book with him, we used to mention referees and Billy Thompson and people like that. And I thought he'd have some complaints against them. No, they ended up big mates. Ronnie Campbell, who Rovers fans hated due to one match. Ronnie Campbell was mates with half that Rovers team. And I guess it's... as time goes on, you tend to forgive mistakes, But, these referees are... They're under instruction, though. They've got a referees leader now, haven't they, in Bentham? Is it Bentham that's doing that job now? And they've got to answer to him. And people say, sack some of the referees. What happened to James Vella? What happened to... what do they call it, 𝗲𝗂𝗧 or whatever they're called. They've disappeared from the game now. Vella does a bit of video refereeing, but so there are some things. They are being watched. It's just that there's so many people. They need so many volunteer, people to come into refereeing that they haven't got. So we're stuck with what we've got. Yeah,
and huge apologies to people who are listening to this on podcast if you're on the way to York at the moment. The aim of this was to record it. The time of travel it'd take you to go from Craven Park to York Stadium. When I googled it, it was 54 minutes. Now, of course, if you're listening to this still, it means you're stuck in traffic because obviously we've gone over 54 minutes. And if you are traveling on the A1079, you're probably, I don't know, hopefully you're queuing up to get into the ground, or you're at the
about 20 minutes
right now.
You've got about 20 minutes to go before you get to the ground. About 20 minutes.
So huge apologies. That was the aim. Of course, the rowing pod always overruns. Let's go to very quickly. We've mentioned it briefly. The 𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗀𝗃 podcast. Steve, just what a great captain for us. I love Minchella. How he's bought into Hull Kingston Rovers. He's bought into the area. He's invested his time into himself, how he's bettered himself as a player, as a captain. I love how Willie Peters is nurtured him. 𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗃 is my captain. I absolutely adore him. I think he's brilliant. He's a great bloke. He's a great player. And he's playing a position that he loves because he's a ball handling 13, which had gone out of the game for a long time, and now they seem to be coming back. And 𝗵𝗂𝗧 absolutely thrives in that side.
He come up through a tough area of Bradford. He mentioned it earlier in the video. I think he went to the school at Buttershaw that Rita Sue and Bob Sue was filmed. Actually, my two stepsons went to that school, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But that's a tough area, and he played for West Bowling, a good, well-run amateur team. So there was a lot of respect shown there. And then, of course, he's come through to Rovers, and there was just him and his dad apparently. So his dad had a massive influence on him and a good influence on him. And it shows. And what I'd love to see is to see him wearing the England shirt at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's a big carrot, isn't it? He's got a massive carrot. As I've, Gary, a number of Rovers players, because if they hopefully do what we hope they will do, come the Ashes at the end of the season, Shaun Wane is going to have a big dilemma, isn't he? Because he can't.
All you can do, can't you? Is put yourself in that. It's a cliche, isn't it? Is put yourself in that shop window, and hopefully impress. Now, I think some people have already picked the team, haven't they? For the 3 Ashes games. But yeah, you've got 𝗵𝗂𝗧, Lewis, Litton, who's playing out of his socks, isn't he? Is that a phrase? He's playing out of his skin at the minute, Back
to calling that, Gary, playing out of your socks. We'll take
I might get when we get to Wembley, I'll get a flag made.
Yeah, playing out of his socks.
Play out your socks. I think when you're talking about a captain on the pitch, when you're talking about a captain playing rugby, you're doing something right, aren't you? If all people are talking about you being the best 13 in the league at the minute, you're doing something right.
And you're doing something right when the opposition criticise you and say you're not good enough. Because I'll tell you what, there isn't a team in the league that wouldn't have Elliot 𝗵𝗂𝗧.
Yeah, I agree.
Or Mikey Lewis.
Can you imagine? Yeah, we could go through the whole team, Jim.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Steve, could you imagine a scenario when you first started supporting Hull Kingston Rovers, when you've foreseen Hull Kingston Rovers playing in Las Vegas?
No. Do you know when I first started supporting Hull Kingston Rovers, the only rugby league you saw was grandstand, half a game, but also there was a 10-minute spot on the old home service, which is now Radio 4, on a Saturday, where it was the home service north, where rugby league got 10 minutes on the radio. Wow. And that was it. That was all they got on the radio, week in, week out. So to come to where we've come to now, and the thought of Rovers playing in Las Vegas was I don't know if I knew Las Vegas existed in those days anyway.
I tell you what, sorry for everybody listening on the podcast or watching, but my first game, I ran on the pitch and I got Roy Old Stock's tie-ups, which was a thing you did back then. You used to run on the pitch and get a player's tie-ups, the bit of rubber underneath their socks that kept the socks up, tie-ups.
They still got them, Gary?
I kept him in the programme for years and years and years, and I thought, and it was a cold winter's day, and I'm thinking to myself, Christ, man, looking back, never did I think we'd be in Las Vegas or being even mentioned about going to Las Vegas. Asking for Roy's tie-ups to Las Vegas is such a leap, innit?
The nearest we went was Cas Vegas.
yeah. Oh, the Isle of Wight when they played, was it Isle of Wight when they played Wigan? Isle of Man when they played Wigan at the ball.
Charity Shield in Douglas, yeah. Fantastic.
I tell you what, one last briefly, Dom Young, he's leaving Sydney. He's going to Newcastle apparently. Is he a player you could have imagined playing at Rovers, Steve? Dom Young?
I'd love to have seen it. I'd love to see it. To me, he's a fire type of player. You'll give him half a yard and he's away, and that's it. I'm not, but Fire never had a great defence. But he scored 10 tries in one match. you know. And I could see if Dom Young was over here, he'd break some try scoring records. I'm certain he would, you know. But I don't think.
Who would you replace him though? Who would you put on the bench if he came to Rovers?
If he comes to Rovers, I think players would have moved on by now anyway. I think the way Peters rotates his team, you know, yeah, we've got 2 good wingers now. We've got 3 if you count Noah, you know. But things move on. The game moves on. Coaches move on. You know, I look at some coaches from the past that were great coaches that wouldn't be able to coach a team now. You look at Brian Noble, you know, he lives in 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, he was a great coach, but he hasn't moved with the times, and there's a lot of coaches that don't, you know, whereas
including the current England coach, do you think? A little bit?
I think there'll be he's still got that Wigan hat on.
Right.
And that might cost us. But it might not, because Wigan are a good team, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it might not. But you look at how Tony Smith was revered when he began coaching, well, after he left Huddersfield. And yet, you look at him now, you know, he's out of a job because he hasn't kept up with the times. And that's what happens. Whereas, I think Willie Peters you can sense that he loves the game inside out. He follows the game inside out. And that he'll be big in Australia in years to come.
Yeah,
you know, when he's done his job here and he goes back home, you know.
I think a good coach, isn't it? You listen to the people around you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he's got a great support team around him, hasn't he?
Yeah,
you know.
And he just doesn't sit there and pick the team. He talks to the coaches about the team. How have the teams, you know, what's your view on him during training? You know, when we trained the other day, what did you think of so and so? And he gets the other coach's views before he makes his decision on his team. You know.
Right, guys, it's time for question time. Right, some of these we've already spoke about and answered, but I'll go through them. Matt Gregson, clearly the burning question, Johno, is if Gilda isn't fit, who partners Hickey in the centres? Brody normally covers, but he's at fullback with more cup-tied. I think we said, haven't we, Steve? We expect Batchelor to go into the centres.
Yeah, I would have thought.
Worked. It's worked, hasn't it? Why not just keep it up? If it's worked, then why change it?
Yeah, Steve, do you think Doro, Brown or Leyland did enough against Salford to be included this week and more regularly going forward? My opinion is I think Brown and Leyland are the front runners. I think Willie Peters likes Brown, and I think Leyland is probably essential in terms of covering Lytton.
I think Leyland's been a revelation. You know, the confidence. You know, he's come back from a really bad injury. Yeah, he shows a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Look at the pass he gave to Lytton the other day, the sublime pass that put Lytton through. You know, Leyland's a scrapper, and he's going to be a real good player for Rovers. So I'd have Leyland, and I think Brown. Because I think, I think he's the more conservative of the props.
Yeah, it's funny as well. That Sambao who was signed from Oldham. He's another player who suffered an ACL at an early age. Michael Matthews with Gilda possibly out. Could Richardson go to fullback, or even the halves freeing Broadbent to play centre and Lewis to fullback? We're not seeing. It's a possibility, but Gary, we're not seeing that Lewis at fullback, are we?
No, I think I think Broadbent will go into fullback unless there's an injury, and then he makes the changes, doesn't he? He moves people around. If there's an injury and somebody comes off.
The one thing it would do, including Richardson, is give us a goal kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you know what? I think there's a lot made of this goal kicking, and I think we've got by okay. Like we do. I don't know. Richardson, for me, and this is my personal opinion, isn't good enough to be included just based on his goal kicking.
Yeah,
We've got better players ahead of him.
It's a one-off match. It's a one-off match. This is where goal kicking can count. I hope it doesn't. I hope we're 14 points clear with 10 minutes to go. But it's a one-off match where goal kicking can count.
The Spirit of the League, he says, now living near Grimsby, do you know of any local supporters or supporter groups? If anyone's living in North Lincolnshire, Grimsby, Scunthorpe, that area, via me, you can get in touch with the Spirit of the League. I'll put you in touch with them. Obviously, good news, Steve, was that Junior Robbins has been set up again through the community trust. So it's an opportunity for the young Robins to get involved and for them, I mean, that was set up, years and years and years ago. Lots of people who were probably listening to this as a kid were probably part of that Robin supporters group. So it's good to see that that's been set back up. Questions?
Going back in time, there's a guy called Len Beecroft, ex-bookmaker. He's of my generation, watches the podcast, I'm pretty sure. Listen.
In his 50s?
It's Fraser Beecroft who's in his 50s. Rufus is Fraser Beecroft, who's Len's, I think is his grandson. But Len used to be on the committee of the Kingston Rovers Junior Supporters Club in the 60s. So the junior supporters went back then,
Good. Anything to engage the younger supporters is really important. Julie Rodders on Instagram says, how does everyone feel about the elephant on our back? About it's our year to win a trophy, too much pressure or outside noise. I think, Gary, there's the talk, if you don't win it now, when will you win it? Like, and that is a pressure in itself, isn't it?
I think it's well known. Everybody wants to win a trophy this year. We've come so close, haven't we, over the last three or 4 years, 3 years. I think it's. Oh, what's the phrase I want to use? I think we are in probably the best position we've been in since the 80s team, Steve. I think I agree with that. Yeah. Since the Savoy tyres, hand and white print type days. Sponsors, and I think it's expected because look at us, look where we are, semi-final of the cup, top of the league. Why can't we expect? It is an elephant, but it's a great elephant to have, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Steve, another question here. With rumours circling about Super League coaches such as Brad Arthur and now Sam Burgess being watched by NRL clubs, of course, Perth Bears being announced as the 18th NRL club. I mean, I tell you what, it just highlights how far away Super League is from NRL. The government, they're putting in $60 million of a 5 minute to support that club, local authority, blah blah. So we're light years away from them. But the point is, as Brad Arthur and now Sam Burgess being watched by NRL clubs, should we be worried about Peters being poached, or is anyone else surprised his name isn't among the rumour mill already, given our recent form?
I think he might have had a few words, but I think he's got a project to finish, and I think he wants to finish that project. And did he sign a 3-year deal originally, and coming towards the end of that? But he's got a family who are enjoying life in Britain, kids at school in Britain, and I think we might get another. If we do get the silverware this year, we might get another couple of years out of Willie Peters, and if we do launch into a period of success, more than 1 year, his value will go tremendously in Australia, and I think he knows that. You know, you look at Brad Arthur. Brad Arthur couldn't get a job after Parramatta until he came to Leeds, and he's not done much with them either. To be fair, no, that's right. and Sam Burgess is always going to be considered. They're all, you know, they're naturally going to go towards Sam Burgess because they're watching how he does at Warrington, and he hasn't done brilliantly at Warrington as far as I'm concerned. Interesting, that Perth team, you know, the local newspaper in Perth is owned by an AFL Australian.
I've seen that. I saw the front page. Yeah.
And the front page slagged off this new Perth Bears team. Isn't it amazing that all the North Sydney Bears supporters are going to support Perth? It's about 3,000 miles away.
But I think Willie Peters is in the mantra of what he spoke to Mikey Lewis about, because obviously Mikey Lewis was presented with the question, would you like to play in the NRL? And I think Mikey Lewis said, yeah, I'd love to, but I'll only be able to do that based on what I do at Ulkington Rovers. And I think Willie Peters ultimately knows his future. He's ambitious enough to go, I want to be an NRL coach of a top side. And we should harness that. We shouldn't dismiss it. We should harness it and go, but that'll only come on the back of him doing something significant at the Robins. And I think that's
I think all professional sports people, want to play at the top of their sport, don't they? You know, rugby league players want to go and play in the NRL. And I'm trying to think of another sport now. Top footballers want to go and play for the foreign teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona, you know. Yeah.
Look at Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's gone to Real Madrid because that's what he wants to do. And a lot of Liverpool fans are totally against it. But let the kid do what he wants to do at his age, 26. You know, I think one of the benefits we're getting from Willie Peters is the fact that the rest of the coaching staff, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Danny Ward, you know, they're learning from him. And if Peters were to go in the next couple of years, I think one of them might just step up.
Next question, Adam Wadforth. I mean, it's a good point. He says, are you concerned about our continued unforced errors? Our error rate is quite high in terms of games, and not so good completion rate so far this season. We have some bigger tests to come, so can't afford to cough up too much territory position. Our completion rate against Salford was 58%.
57, something like that, yeah.
But
58.
That's based on the fact we didn't need to see out our sets because we were scoring tries
on the second.
So I do like stats, but sometimes there's a context to the stat, and I think
we mentioned it last time, didn't we? I think we said, you know, some of those errors will be when you drop the ball over the line and stuff like that, you know, or a try not allowed and things like that.
As long as the errors are being made in attack, not many errors being made in defence.
Right, next question, Sean. Great to have this question. There's a minority that simply don't get the contribution Tyrone May makes to the side in both attack and defence. His reading of the game and technical analysis top quality. Those making comparisons to Lewis simply can't understand the balance of the team. It will be a massive loss. Of course, potentially we could be without Tyrone May next season. Who would you want to fill his boots next season, as he almost guaranteed to leave? Willie Peters Willie Peters already have someone earmarked and committed? Thoughts? I'm a fan of Tyrone May, but I know there's a lot of people who don't see the value, Steve, in terms of what he does.
You look at defensively, he's massive.
20-odd tackles every game from a halfback.
It's massive.
Well,
from day one. You know, when people were slagging him off for, you know, they didn't understand his play. Do you know, Tyrone May, during the time he had off through whatever reason it was, he watched rugby league. He watched video after video after video, non-stop, of the ARL. And he learned from it. He does things differently. But I'll tell you what, he'd go in any team of mine. As for who would replace him, there's talk of Lachlan Lamb, isn't there?
Well, that now goes on to the next question from Bazza Kingston. Of course, he's been on the Robin pod. He'll be gone in a few weeks' time from his luxury lorry, as long as it's not parked up somewhere in a garage. If the rumours that are circling about Lockie Lamb are true, do you think he'd be an improvement on our current squad and make us a better team, even if it's a replacement for either May or Lewis? I believe he's showing his form of 2023 and looks an exciting prospect, and it's a massive bonus that he's a non-quota player. Two things: he's top of the assist charts at the moment, 14 assists. He's a non-quota player, and he's out of contract. He's an attractive prospect, isn't he? If you're looking at potential replacements, I don't think Lewis is in that equation in terms of departing, but in terms of replacing May,
Tyrone May,
very attractive.
Lamb and Lewis together, the double L's. Yeah, it could be a good move. Do you know what? I've still got this Brad Schneider thing about me. I love.
You mentioned it last time.
Yeah, I'd loved him to have come over. Again.
Well, the considerations as well, Gary. It's not just about the player you want. It's in terms of the salary cap situation, the quota spot. I mean, there's a meeting. I don't think the meeting's been held yet in terms of residency rule, in terms of 5 years of playing Super League or 5 years. That was supposed to have taken place, I'm sure, last week.
They've pushed it back.
They've pushed it back, yeah. Which potentially takes Reece Martin and Tanganoa off, bringing in Lamb at the expense of May. I mean, that frees up some spots then but the salary cap then obviously comes into play, because as much as you might have quota spots, your budget's your budget.
Yeah.
I like, in relation to the question, I think going back as well to the previous question about Tyrone May, because we're talking about him in two questions here, aren't we? He's like a really good footballer, isn't he? Seems to have loads of time on the ball and just kind of always manages to kind of shrug off that first attempted tackle and just find himself in a really nice position. And people don't, I don't know, the question was about, do people notice him? I think he's just one of those players that just gets on with it and he's really good at it. I like Lachlan Lamb. But sometimes he can go missing during a game. I think if he's under a bit of pressure, I'm not sure. I don't know about him. I'm still undecided.
The other thing as well is what comes into play is Willie Peters and Adrian Lamb are great friends, and that could come into play in terms of where they're at. There's no doubt, I'm sure, that Lee would love to keep him, but as a dad, the next best option might be, why don't you go to Rover if that's the. So there's a lot of cards to be dealt in this situation, isn't there? And it potentially might not even be allowed, because of course we have the talk about Reynolds from Australia, who that could be on the table. So who knows?
Well, he's now following us. He's now following Rovers, isn't he, on Instagram? Apparently,
they're interested. Very interested. Yeah, he is.
I think on the Lamb one, Chris. I think Adrian said he could go last season. Adrian had said it. Yeah, he was quite happy for him to go. Didn't Hull kind of put in some kind of inquiry about him as well? I don't know.
Why would you sign for them? I mean,
I know.
Unless you want to end your career, why would you go there?
Well, there's a few that are ending the career. This
exactly. The price is right. So, Pat O'Connor, last question. Love the shows. Are you guys concerned about fatigue? Teams are getting a rest and we aren't. Of course, there's a scenario here, isn't there, where we could potentially play every game possible in rugby league at top level.
Yeah.
Which we did the season previously.
Yeah, no, 2 seasons ago. The only match we didn't get to was the grand final.
Pat says, I feel we're looking a bit tired. I don't know. Do we look tired? I don't think we do.
I think, and this isn't aimed at the person who wrote the question in. Yeah. I think it's quite easy to be, when you're winning and you're on top and you're doing really well, it's quite easy to be hypercritical, isn't it? And hypersensitive about the team you support. I think winning teams have to win everything, have to play all the games.
And winning teams don't tire.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Can you imagine when you're winning games and then the coach goes, "Oh, I'm going to rest you," Right. Are you bored? No, I'm.
You must be joking, yeah.
Yeah. Unless my leg's falling off, I'm playing.
Yeah.
No, great. I'll tell you what, guys.
That was a problem during Justin Morgan's reign, and I was a mate of Morg's. You know, I used to say to him, "Why are you making changes all the time?" You know, and I think Tony Smith did it a lot as well. Making changes, keep the fluidity there.
Yeah.
Keep the players on the park. That's what they want.
Yeah. Well, guys, hopefully, come Saturday evening, we're talking about a Challenge Cup final and an opportunity to lift some silverware again. That's what we're all desperate for. Contribution's been brilliant. Apologies if you're stuck in the car park at York and still not got to the game yet and you're listening to this because the journey took longer than the predicted 40, 45, 46 minutes. But a huge thanks to everyone who's tuned in on YouTube. Everyone who's listening on podcast. Of course, your support is always appreciated. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Singing a song. When the red robin comes bob bobbing, when the red robin comes bob bobbing, when the red robin comes bob bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.